This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Deliver when it comes to leadership and governance. Is it about time?
Absolutely, and I think we're in a very good place now. That's why I was actually alluding to what we are trying to put in place, because Dennis asked me that whether there's a chance that we can begin to drift towards that rational voting, and I'm telling you, there's a good chance with the young people, because they are fairly considering looking outside the normal play in terms of how our politics is done. And my prayer too, because I might not be a youth, but I'm equally young. It's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see us drift towards people-driven agendas that cuts across, so that whatever I'm propping somebody that is interested in the 2027 politics should be something that can benefit you. It can even benefit both of you and do. And then regardless of whether or not you support me, because I'm a citizen of this republic, and I want the country to do well, isn't it? And I think what the young people have shown us in the last 2 years is that it's possible to be able to rally us towards that direction. And as Christians we have to keep hoping. That's what we must do. We must never, it's like when Jesus Christ was that boat and it's swaying and people are giving up, and he tells them, why are you afraid? It's possible that we can be able to survive. So we have a chance with the young people.
I mean, if I just pause and look at communities out here, you realize that there are many who would vote for an individual because they contributed in a matanga, or they attended, or they attended Marurashio, or they came and they just opened a katap somewhere that is dry after 2 weeks of it running. People don't connect individuals in office and the roles that they do play, whether it's on the county assembly and the legislation that happens in the county assembly, and the kind of MCAs you need there to ensure that the laws that govern the county are up to scratch. Same as member of parliament, senators, president, and all that. But if you pause and look at conversations Kenyans are having today, Kenyans know who is a good leader, who is a bad leader. They know who is a performer, who is not a performer. But what happens on the election day, that things Kenyans have complained for like over 20 years are things that they do not consider when they're casting that vote.
That's why I was saying that Kenya is a growing democracy. And Kenya is a growing democracy. The United States has existed for almost 250 years. We are now just about 60 years in. And I guess as days go by, then we can be able to increase. For me, first of all, is the awareness and access to information, so that people in the villages and the rural areas can be able to understand the specific roles of the leaders they are voting for. That civic education then will give us the benefit of making that rational decision. Because if I'm not informed, I need to be informed first, so that I can be able to make that rational decision in the first place. So access to information is very critical, and that access to information again goes hand in hand with the level of education and our education system, and how people get are able to have access to education, so that they can have an open mind to be able to interrogate the things that you can interrogate. I have sisters, maybe aunties, who probably at the same age shouldn't do, but they can't think like us, not because they do not want to, but because they've not got the benefit of being access to information and maybe educated to that level. So I think this is a journey that we're going to take for a long time. We are banking big time on the young people, for me, like I'm saying, and that is even what we're doing. We, as the PM party, we want to go big on the young people, so that we can try and get as many young people in parliament who can then become the drivers in their various constituencies that they come from, to be able to get to where we're trying to say.
I think there's a difference between voting emotionally and voting based on how somebody makes you feel. There's a difference between the two, that I think it is necessary for anybody who is running for political office to make the people feel good about them. It's necessary. But that about how they carry themselves and what it is that they're going to do. Not necessarily because you love me. You can hate me, but I can make you feel good about a certain thing. Very true. Now, Stella, welcome. Boy, Stella is here. Help us understand, as we're going into this thing, that we're saying that it's about time we stop voting emotionally and started voting on how a person will actually perform, and what we see as what needs to be leadership and or governance. Because in the village, like I said, we know, in the community, we know who the village drunkard is. We know who the village madman is. We know who is the one who steals. Yeah. We know.
The ones running at night.
Yeah.
You know them.
We know where, if your girls are walking in the evening, you tell them, don't walk there. You know. So you are able to understand who will then be a good leader, who the person is you give your money in those, what are those things called? Merry-go-round, whatever. Yeah. You know, right? You know who can keep the money. We may think that there's no connection, but there is. So why is it that then now the person who is essentially going to make the law, spend your money, and oversight those who do, doesn't need that kind of rational thinking?
First of all, let me apologize for my lateness. I had an emergency this morning that I had not seen coming. I'm glad I made it though, because I have one or two sentences that I want to throw into this conversation. Indeed, the situation you have described in the village is exactly what we have in the national arena. Kenyans know who they can trust with their money and their treasury. They know who's the village madman, and they also know who they can never give power to, but for some strange reason at the national level, they don't apply the same stringent rules. I'm happy that I found you talking about emotions, because one of the groups that is really beating themselves up for applying their emotions in voting is Mount Kenya. They have beaten themselves up so much and said they brought in our current president through emotions. Unfortunately, they seem to be going back to the same trend, working on emotions and not necessarily thinking through some of the actions that they are going to take. I think most Kenyans must be driven to start thinking about their interests in elections, begin thinking about who is going to deliver on those interests, and most importantly, begin thinking about punishing people who don't deliver for this country. Gen Z had brought us very close to that place where we were actually talking about accountability, responsibility, what an office requires and what a person is doing. As a matter of fact, we have started having conversations about the people who promise things that are not within the mandate of the office they are taking.
Right.
But that conversation has been driven back by the status quo, wanting to coalesce around tribes, wanting to deliver kingpins and use those as vehicles to transport the madman, the thief, and the good leader in one bus. I am saying that we must all prepare now to select the right people, even if we have to go into that bus and look for the thief and tell them to get out of the bus.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone is ready to do the same. If only we can exercise voting that checks the individual and we stop looking at the vehicles that are being created, we are going to protect ourselves. If we don't, I'm afraid we are headed for the same kind of trouble that we always get after every election.
Stella, is there a possibility that Kenyans know exactly what it is they're doing, even electing that madman? Why do I say that? Because Kenyans know what is right and what is wrong. Because assuming a population where M-Pesa is a big thing, everybody with their PIN, no one ever keys in the wrong PIN. That means everybody knows what is wrong and what is right. Kenyans are the very same people who will turn up and say, when an individual is corrupt going through the judicial system, huyo ni mtu wetu, and being targeted, forgetting that it is your money that has been stolen. So then, if that is where we find ourselves as a country, how do we, as individuals seated here, change that conversation to make sense that if it's 12 billion that was lost, individuals who died in a hospital died because 12 billion was stolen. So you do not need to vote this person. Perhaps you need to push authorities for this person to be jailed, because we're not having those conversations.
I would say that Kenyans actually know what they are doing and what they are voting for. But when I say they know what they're doing and what they're voting for, it is based on the information that they have available. And I'm glad I found my colleague talking about informed voter. You know, one of the factors I've had to interact with in the last couple of days is the reality of the arrangements that are happening and alignments that are happening in our politics. And I suspect that one of the groups that will be the most disappointed when the chips fall where they should will be Gen Z, because I think they're the most hopeful for change.
Absolutely.
Most hopeful for change. And when they discover the kind of games and trickery that our politicians are playing right now, they will be extremely disappointed, and I suspect it is in the best interests of our current president that Gen Z gets so disillusioned that they don't show up to vote. If they have information that their savior is Dennis, and I'm speaking very cryptically, and they make a decision that they're all going to follow Dennis and they're all going to support Dennis, they're using their money sometimes they're being supported to support him, and then eventually they get to the ballot and they find that Dennis was a trickster. Dennis had no intention of being on the ballot, for example, and therefore Dennis is not there to save them as he had promised. You know, one of the things that they're going to decide is that this country is irredeemable, and they'll go back to where they used to be. And there was a time they didn't care about the elections in this nation. So I'm basically saying that if we can actually take time to get even deeper into the information about who they are voting for, and maybe begin telling the truth about who's serious about being on the ballot and who's playing a game on behalf of somebody on our ballot. Today, I'm going to keep it cryptic. Because of some moving parts and some decisions that are currently being made. But the truth is, if you follow the money, you will know who's serious about this election. You will know who's playing games. You will know who's dancing on stage, but they are on a different arena and they are not with you in this conversation. A reminder also to all the voters, not just Gen Z, this also applies to women, because I have worked with women supporting elections, women mobilizers. They are the kingmakers, and majority of them sometimes believe in supporting an individual because they say, sisi huyo ndo tunamfeel, tunamwamini. Sometimes they say things like ni mtrue. But what is mtrue, you know? Does Mtrue deliver the services that you need at the end of the day? We have the kind of governor we have in Nairobi because he has dimples. Those dimples we are paying dearly for. Are we able to just raise the bar a little and start having conversations about the right things? Save for dimples, what else can this person do? Do they have a track record for delivery? Are they the kind of person who care about life? Are they the kind of person who will allow themselves to serve this nation in a way that then will transform our country? Have they stolen anything from anybody? We made a huge mistake electing a man for president who has been accused of corruption, has been accused even of participating in the post-election violence. Not just participating, but, you know, as a key mobilizer for the post-election violence. A man who seems really not to care about our social democracy and is a capitalist par excellence. So for him, it is benefit, profit for him and his cronies before Kenyans. So we should not be surprised that we got what we got out of this election. And for this reason, we must ask ourselves, what leadership philosophy do these people carry? What does Rigiji believe in as a leadership philosophy? What does the emeritus, former CJ Maraga believe in as a philosophy for leadership? If you are planning to have Babu Owino as your governor, what philosophy does he believe in? You know, and when you say Mimi ndio Sifuna, behind Mimi ndio Sifuna, what is the philosophy of leadership that is coming up with? Has he thought about one, or he hasn't even had time to do so because of the kind of pressure that he's gathered along the way as tides were changing for him? If we don't ask those questions, we will find people in power who are either going to come and continue the capitalism that this gentleman is exercising in this country, are going to continue the looting that is continuing in this nation, and are also going to be very responsible about answering to Kenyans because they don't care. They don't care. They don't have a philosophy. They don't account to you. And so they can tell you, if you hear that there are goons in one place, don't go. Because they are capable of aiding and abetting crime as long as it's serving their purposes. My message today is that Kenyans need to stop looking at things on the surface. Number two, stop watching the news and concluding based on what is on the news who you're going to vote for. Can you take time to research about your leader? Find out what this person has done. Find out what they have not done. And then after you do that, also take time to decide if you truly, in the words of Ndo, feel right about this person. Because we normally have caution. We normally say this one, we are kingia tatumaliza.
You know.
So check that feeling. And if you feel it once, don't doubt your conscience. That person is not supposed to be a leader in this nation.
Stella couldn't have come at a more appropriate time than the way she's done, because it's just drifting there. That's where my heart is, because what we've gone through this week, and allow me a minute to just put this across, is that the Linda Mwananchi battle and the fallout that is purported within the Linda Mwananchi affiliation, which is where I belong to, has been that the young people of this country have a message they've put across. They say they want a fresh start because they believe what you're having and we are being forced to be, people are trying to serve us on the table, is something we've had so many times before. And it's not just the Gen Z. Gen Z's millennial and progressive Kenyans who love this country and want to see the country move forward have an idea that we can only move forward if at all we change the process of how we arrive at our leaders. And that's why the struggle that has been within the Linda Mwananchi, because the original dream that had picked up naturally, nobody sat and said we are going to build something called Linda. There was an agitation by the young MPs last year over young MPs led by Caleb Amisi and Sifuna, and they were trying to prop up something called Kenya Moja, you remember? And they were trying to say we need a new generation of leaders. They didn't have a party, an office, and things like that. It was not formal. And then when it picked up, then the activities of unfortunate death of Baba and then the fallout within ODM created the kind of mileage they needed to become a solid brand on a political platform. Then all of a sudden, when they realized that the Kenyans have accepted them, other people infiltrated the system, you understand? And they started coming in with their own personal interest to a level where that we had to fall back and say, let's, in my journey of within the advertising field is that one time when we were trying to bid for a business, a long time ago, about around 2010 there, maybe 15 years ago, at the then old Safaricom house there. And then we were trying to pitch this big reality TV show out of what used to have Big Brother and Project Fame, and said maybe we can have a music reality show, but which with the guest hosted in an environment like a Big Brother. Then we came up with a budget. We went to Safaricom, and then we gave this big show. We were not successful. And then later on, one of the ladies that was part of the team came to us and told us, Ngaira, in big companies like this one's, Dennis, there are people who are paid exclusively not to be carried away with the side shows that you give on the table. They want to see if you're proposing a reality show that's going to have 15 episodes, the scale of production, the technical skills, Dennis, that is behind you must be able to back up the good ideas you're putting on the table. So their job is not to be carried away with the things you're telling us. It's not how you've dressed, whether you're good looking or what. They want to know where is the money, the alternative money that is going to back up the show. And I learned from them that whenever we have got all these good proposals like what we're doing with Linda, we must be sure there's this amongst ourselves. There has to be a bunch of us who can sit back and begin to see, are we still heading towards the right direction? If you're not, then you're able to raise the issues that are in there.
Is it headed in the right direction?
We are heading in the right direction, but our Linda Mwananchi group has been infiltrated by characters that do not buy the vision that we have. I've said it many times. You saw what happened when my brother, Honorable Caleb Amisi, who's also my party leader, said that how can you go to a Sifuna stage and then be able to prop another candidate who, even within the opposition ticket, is a competitor? You understand? We agree that it's much wiser to have a one united ticket to face the president, but you see, all the players within that opposition space are also competing, isn't it? And so when you raise that, immediately the day that followed, you saw the barrage that was there on social media and on Twitter, and they said these are NIS, these are things like that, because there are characters within that platform who do not belong to Linda Mwananchi. They belong to some other parties. They already have presidential candidates wherever they're coming from, but they come on Sundays to fill the Linda stage, but then midweek they're somewhere else plugging their presidents and vice presidents over there. Then they expect us to be able to do that. You've hosted Karoli Omondi, Andrew. Karoli Omondi is the spokesperson of Linda Mwananchi. Mm-hmm. He sits in the middle of the activities of Linda Mwananchi. But also Karoli Omondi happens to be the Secretary General of Azimio. Azimio is a different political faction. It has a chairman, Uhuru Kenyatta, and a current leader who is Kalonzo Musyoka after the demise of Raila Odinga. Both Kalonzo Musyoka and Edwin Sifuna are leading two different political factions and are planning to compete for that opposition ticket. When you're in the middle of the two factions, it clearly tells you that somebody is playing dual roles, isn't it? And that's one. That's two, when you're leading a political outfit that is pushing for generation change, you do not want to, again, align it to the old folks, not to say they're bad, but you don't want to align it to the old folks who are selling the old agenda.
Yeah.
That is where we have a problem.
Stella, then one will ask the question, who will build the cat? As we head to 2027, what must we do for Kenyans not to nakufeel, kona dimples? Vote right.
I'm going to answer the question of who will build the cat, but let me just pick up something that Ngaira spoke about. remaining true to Linda Mwananchi. I'm wondering whether we are all on the same page on what was true about Linda Mwananchi to begin with.
Okay.
We are hearing reports from different individuals about what was true. Assuming we don't know what was discussed in those boardrooms, not that we don't know, we know, but assuming we don't know, then let's look at what Mwananchi has been asking them for, because they're not vying for their own sake, they're vying for Mwananchi. Mwananchi has been telling them that the only way to beat the person we want to beat is to have a united opposition and have one person getting all the votes from the opposition basket. I personally believe that if we are not careful, this thing is going to scatter in every direction. And the reason why it's going to scatter is not because it has been captured by strange people. It has actually been captured by the enemy of progress. And the more friends that are being made around this arrangement, the more enemies are being gathered around this conversation. And the truth is that Mwananchi is not picking that up. I know for a fact, because I engaged in several conversations last week, that got me thinking that Mwananchi is not picking up the fact that the dream that they had either been sold or that they thought they were carrying together with certain initiatives and not being carried forth. If you ask me, the only two people that I think have remained truthful to the Linda Mwananchi dream, is actually the Honorable Babu Owino and Orengo.
Okay.
And they are paying a huge price for it.
Hold on to that thought, Stella. Because this one, we have to open it up just a little bit. Let's take the news. We'll come back and continue with this conversation because she's a bombshell. She's brought it this morning. Okay, we'll be back after this. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
The latest news from around the world. This is The Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
And who's saying the most about the dream?
Right.
For Linda Mwananchi, for example, I am looking at the people who are investing their resources in Linda Mwananchi. I'm looking at the people who have continued to speak the same language. I'm looking at the people who have not developed new ambitions from the ones they announced at the beginning of the Linda Mwananchi brigade. And when I start looking at that, I have to also begin looking at who has made friends and what kind of friends they have made. Now, where I depart from Gaira is because for me, when I look at the opposition, I'm not looking at the opposition as Linda Mwananchi separate from United Opposition. Kenyans have said one thing: if you want to beat the current president, come together as an opposition and give us who? One candidate.
One candidate.
And for that reason, for me, I'm not separating Rigiji, Wiper, and whoever from the opposition. I'm actually saying amongst all, let me call them noisemakers for now, all the noisemakers in the opposition right now, they should be figuring out how they're going to get one candidate who Kenyans are going to vote for. Now, who has Kenyans put their dreams on? A number of people for presidency. And of course, let's just speak about some of the big names for now. We are all saying Edwin Sifuna, right? When Sifuna was in trouble with his party, which was also Babu Owino's party, you know it was costly to align with him. Babu stood with him in the party. Before he could even be outside with anybody, he stood with him. He accepted to be seen with him outside of the party. And so for me, if you're looking for your friends, this one who stood with you in need is a friend indeed. The other person who sacrificed his career, and he's sacrificing until today, is Orengo. He's paying a huge price on the ground because he's being told he doesn't care about the county. He's busy focusing on Linda Mwananchi.
Yeah.
He's paying a price for it. People who are paying the price and accepting to walk that journey. And then I start looking at other people and I'm saying, you had those friends at the beginning. You're beginning to make alignments, especially for me, that may be dangerous for Sifuna, where you're now being made a village kingpin. Again, when you started off as a national treasure for Gen Z, you know. So for me, I have just been watching the friends who are constantly pulling him towards the sun, and the weekend was a climax for me. when every Tom, Dick, and Harry was lifting up his arm and saying they support him and everything. Even the kind of support you get determines whether you continue being the quality kind of candidate that Kenyans are looking for. Gaira's party believes in new people, like get rid of all the corrupt people, let them all go home and bring in new people. And so for me, when I see people who may not necessarily have a clean record associating with a candidate who we are propping, for example, as a presidential candidate, I worry. I worry because we are then saying that we will have a government that may have the same kind of people who are eating like the ones who have been found in President Ruto's government. And so for me, the question I'm asking myself is, if you're not gathering, this is very biblical, then you're scattering. If you're not gathering, then you're scattering. Where I depart from PM party is that you're looking for, you're Puritan and you're looking for clean people. But this political arena currently is not offering clean people. And the way the tussle is going, it will be impossible to have all clean, but it's possible to clean out the worst of them and make sure they're sent home. Where do we meet in that conversation? Because if you continue working, if you continue working towards your trajectory, it basically means we are not going to get a commonality, number one. Number two, if you decide, for example, that you're going to set up a political party now, which is what Sifuna is doing, some of the assignments you have to do as we approach the election is popularizing that party, working to set up that party so that it's a factor in the next election. I think anybody who does not have a party by the 31st of August is wasting time. Because you can't be running a presidential campaign and still be trying to popularize a party. It's a lot of work, requires a lot of resources. If you have money, you can make it happen because you can pay people to do it as you run around campaigning. Last time I checked, we are fundraising for Mimi Sifuna, right? And so the ambition of actually, trying to set up a party and do all these things may not necessarily be something that works, right? Now, Babu said he's going to be governor. Babu has walked with this gentleman when he was in trouble. Babu has gone everywhere with him. Orengo has gone everywhere with him. They literally became the three faces that were showing up for Linda Mwananchi everywhere they went. Babu has paid the price in terms of even being attacked by people, constantly hearing that his supporters are being arrested and he has to go to court and defend them alone. It's not that all these other people are not lawyers. He's the one who's showing up for him. Orengo getting in trouble constantly, being called out constantly. For me, I'm now looking at what price are you paying to associate with the opposition.
But the same Orengo who went, according to what we see, to then go and bring in someone who may not be Puritan to join the faction at the same time.
And that's why for me I'm saying let's assess all the friends that are being made by everyone, number one. Number two, let us check whether they are gathering or scattering. Because if you're not gathering the vote, it means you're not working for the purpose of this mission. The mission was to bring the opposition together, give us one person, let's form a government with a different person, and hopefully we send home all the people who are corrupt, all the people who have robbed Kenyans, all the people who have killed Kenyans, and allow the new person that we are voting as president to have quality people to choose from. One of the biggest problems that Ruto has today is that he does not have quality friends. I've said it in this studio before. And so everybody he has appointed to work for him keeps on messing up because they're not quality human beings from the start. And so the mission was to make sure that Linda Mwananchi has quality humans, so that when you're forming government, you're choosing from amongst the better of the lot, not the best of them. Because if we were to nitpick, we will find sins that have been committed by every single one of those individuals. But then we are saying that as of now, there are friends that are being made that are a complete baggage for this movement. And their records may not be seen now, but in a short while, I dare say by the end of October, you will begin to see how their proclivities, the things that they are aligned to, are going to start showing up. And for me, that is where I worry. The whole of last week I kept on saying we must protect the hearts of Gen Z. Because when they get this news, they'll be very dejected, they'll be very disillusioned. Majority of the millennials who are used to saying, you know what, these things are not going to change, let me enjoy my peace, are actually going to let these things slide. And the moment we do, the person who's going to be winning is the person we don't want to see winning in the coming election.
It's definitely.
I'm also saying, and I started off by saying that, follow the money. Follow the money. Kenyan voter, follow the money. Check who is having conversations with your preferred candidate in the morning and who's having conversations with them at night. Follow the money. If they don't have the means, friendships and associations to be able to fund their ambitions, sit back and ask questions. We have time to ask questions. Sit back and ask questions. And when we come to the next election, Kenyans must be punitive, very punitive. Anybody who looks like they're playing games with our elections should be punished accordingly. And they should be punished by being sent home. Let them watch us form government from outside. If we don't do that today, If we don't do that today, if we don't check the alliances that are forming within the opposition and check where they are going, we are going to be in a lot of trouble as a country, because what we are going to miss is the nuances that the politicians actually want us to miss. This is a whole game. There are several layers to it. Every day you're allowed to see the layer they want you to see. When the other layer makes sense, they allow you to see that layer, and then they depart from the mission that they have set. Also, a reminder, for example, to the person who's being propped up as presidential candidate today, Sifuna, that when you make friends when you're in trouble, sometimes those friends are the wind under your wings. And departing from them may actually means that you've set yourself up to fall from very far high. The foundations of his fame right now are not quite strong. He needs to do a lot of work to fortify that foundation, because he had not thought about the presidency. He knows, he can admit to you. He needs to fortify that foundation, and the kind of friends he's making will determine whether that foundation will stand or not. Anybody who comes to his camp today, who is associated with the oppressor, is going to leave him without feet to stand on. He must carefully choose his friends even as he's going. Just because you have been named presidential candidate does not mean that now everybody can be your friend and you can carry all kinds of friends. It requires a special kind of talent to know who will carry the burden you have and who is going to come and become a burden to you.
Gaira, earlier you talked about the need of Kenyans to punish individuals, and she has also reverberated the same. And as we approach 2027 then, there is need for all these nuances to be put into perspective for Kenyans to equally look at, okay, fine, we're going into election. Is it a question of mtuetu? Is it a question of emotions? Is it a question of, at the end of the day, what do we want as a people, as a governance structure that will improve our situation?
I think Stella got the subject correct, but maybe I made an assumption of who I had in mind.
Okay.
8.2 million Kenyans never showed up to vote in the last election, right? 8.2 million Kenyans didn't show up in the last elections didn't show up in the last elections to vote. For whatever reasons, they found no need for them to turn up to vote, and they were the largest base out of that election because they were the most. As Kenyans, we need to ask ourselves, why didn't they find any need to show up to vote in an election that was very charged? And especially the young people, with the young people the most concerned of that election. And we decided that we need to look into it and see why. And our belief then was that it's because they didn't believe with the crop of leaders that were there at that particular time. And neither did the candidates on the ballot were worthy enough for them to show up. Since then, the numbers have increased, Dennis. IBC just did a mass voter registration, the highest they've ever done. You know, they've never hit 2.6 million within 30 days. That was a very big performance. And majority of them, again, young. That has been the mission from the very beginning, from last year. Last year, when we set up Kenya Moja, it's because we had seen that potential, that there's a possibility that there are young Kenyans, or in particular, and progressive Kenyans, who want to see something new, something fresh, and we can go all the way. In business too, if you're selling groceries, and you realize everybody in that market is selling tomatoes and onions, and there's a gap for avocados, and you decide that for me, I'm going to make a tactical decision that I'm only going to supply avocados so that I have a niche within the market and continuously sell. You don't show up with the avocados and after 3 days start saying, I'm going back to the onions. Because there's a tangible, solid number of Kenyans that truly, as Stella is saying, that want to see a new country that has a new arrangement, a new generation, a new formation of leaders, and they believe in that. If that doesn't happen, two things must happen. They either reject that candidate or once again don't show up to vote. That was the original base of what Linda was. You understand? And so the moment other players come into play, and I've given you an example, Dennis, and I'd love you to also react to this. I've said, Karoli Omondi, because she was saying the company that you keep with Sifuna, and the people that are purportedly, because a presidential election is a serious business. It's not a joke. You have to put in a lot of money. And if people are seeing your rallies are happening, the MPs used to contribute. I used to be there. They would say we're going to the Busia rally. They say we're going to Busia. Would need some sort of stage. We'll need some sound. This is the budget. I say we need 1 million. How many of us are here? We are 10, 15 MPs. Can everybody chuck at least 50,000 shillings so that we have a budget? In Kakamega, because that's where I come from and I was there, that ground you saw there is called Amaremba ground. In fact, it has a nickname. It's called Chocolate City for those who come from Kakamega. Because of, we have a KMTC college there. Yeah. So it's a very popular place with students. So most times people love, during the weekends from the hostels, they love to hang out in that ground. So because of that, it was branded Chocolate City. It's like a dating site around the place. It's a free space, Dennis. If you go there, you can have a rally tomorrow. You just need to notify the police. The only two major expenses, it was the stage and the sound and your fare there, whether you're driving or you're walking, to get there. You understand? That has since changed with what is happening now. In Homa Bay, somebody said he saw 150 Prados. You know how much it costs to be able to fuel and get there. That's like tens and tens of millions, you understand? So we said, if we lose out the audience that you are addressing from the very beginning, that's why we pulled aside. I said, wait a minute. We are attracting faces into this group that were not necessarily the original vision bearers of what we wanted to do with Linda. As Caleb has continuously said, even on this show, we told you is the founder of Linda Mwananchi, because of what we had agreed on. So if Carolio Mondi today, and Stella, maybe you react to this, is a spokesperson of Linda Mwananchi, sits in all the strategy meetings of Linda, an independent political formation that has a candidate in mind for the 2027 elections, but immediately leaves that room, he reports to another room where is the Secretary General of Azimio Coalition, which has a chairman who's Uhuru Kenyatta, and the Secretary General and Chairman Uhuru Kenyatta, and a new leader after the passing of Baba, who's Kalonzo, on record. That is his presidential candidate. You understand?
Who's presidential candidate?
The presidential candidate of Azimio is Kalonzo Musyoka, is the leader of that group. And the chairman is Uhuru Kenyatta. And the Secretary General is Carolio Mondi. You understand? And it's an independent political formation that is planning to compete in this election, isn't it? But the same Secretary General of Azimio is the spokesperson of another political formation that is Linda Mwananchi, that also has a presidential candidate. True or false, Dennis? It's not possible. In the realm of the
clearly it is, because it's happening.
It's happening. And I'm telling you. And you can imagine, because those of us who believe in the Linda dream of a new generation of leaders under Edwin Sifuna, which is what we've done, are not very comfortable with such an arrangement. You understand?
So what would you prefer?
Yeah.
Listen, those who believe in Kalonzo, in a free and democratic state, must, within the opposition cause, first of all, you must agree, I must let you know that we believe that to beat William Ruto, we need a united opposition. But even within the opposition, we are trying to build our own candidate. That's why you've seen Rigiji doing his thing, whatever he's doing. He's building his numbers, so that when he comes to the table, he can come to the table and say, so what are we bringing on board? In the process of wanting to come with one solo candidate that can be able to face the president. That therefore means Sifuna, Matiang'i, Kalonzo are competitors for that presidential ticket, isn't it? Those of us who believe in Sifuna and in Linda are not comfortable with having characters that come into Linda stage, fill the Linda stage with on Sundays, on the weekends, but then midweek they're playing other roles, pushing other candidates. And when you raise it, we've been completely under attack, and I raised it before. I said this whole week, just because we said, look, we don't mind Kalonzo and all the other candidates building their numbers. That's what you do in a competition, in a fair competition, Dennis. Then when you get to the table, then we can be able to present something. But if we're gonna continue having rallies and people filling our Linda stage, purporting to be with us, and then eventually midweek they move to other candidates. At that time, when now we go to the table, our brother Sifuna might not have anybody behind him, because those ones in Wiper would come in as Wiper on that table. Those ones who are spending time with Matiang'i would come with Jubilee, and we might not be
So
able
are
to
you confused? Because you seem, are you confused? Because you seem, if you're confused, then it's not convincing anybody outside here that you're very clear on the position, because you can't have a moving target when you're trying to hit something. You can't. Any sniper will tell you that you need your target to be in one place at one time for a particular period of time in order to hit it. If you don't have those three creating the situation, you will not hit the target. And if anything, I'm just going to say, it sounds like you're playing right into the hands of President William Ruto. Right into his hands. Because you can't say that you're and I've asked this question to everyone who sat here. You can't say that you're united if you have 6 different presidential candidates. Who is the person? Is it people say, oh, there's still time. Okay, understood. There's a year to the election, a little bit under a year now to the election. You have a campaigning period between May the 27th and August 10th, or May 29th and August 10th, to then be able to get people to coalesce around an idea. But how are you united? It's like saying, let's have moving targets so we can confuse the enemy, but then you end up confusing yourself. Which one is it? Can you have 6 different presidential candidates? Matiang'i, Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa, Maraga, Rigiji, we don't know, Sifuna. Those are 6 already. And you're at the same time saying that we have a united opposition. Can you do that?
I think it's easy to announce that you want to be presidential candidate, but whether or not you want to be on the ballot is a different story.
Okay.
There are several people who have announced that they're vying for presidency just so that they can position themselves for negotiation. And one of the reminders I want to give on this table is that the individuals who we are asking to unite and choose one person are all politicians. So all of them, number one interest is to protect their own turf and ensure that then they have a stake in the next election. And then number 2, then figure out who to collaborate with as they are doing that. And so for me, I'm not worried about individuals setting up political parties and wanting to vie in those political parties. As a matter of fact, I wish we had fewer parties. I wish we would have been able to have Linda Mwananchi inside ODM driving an agenda with an already set up party, but then ODM chose to be swallowed by the president. So now that we are in this place, anybody who's creating his own political party is creating it for a specific purpose. Babu is planning to be a president in 2032. It makes sense for him to have a party now, so that in the next election he'll not be looking for a party. Looking at Sifuna vying for presidency, he needs a political party. ODM is definitely not going to be his home, so it makes sense for him to be looking for a political party. The different individuals, especially for Rigiji to consolidate his backyard, he needed a political party to do so. I wish he wasn't consolidating around tribe, but that's the avenue he has found to consolidate on. So whether or not there are many political parties is not a problem. Number 2, I have a slight departure from Gaira on the people who come on the podium for Linda Mwananchi. The truth is that politics is a game of numbers. And so for me right now, I'm not worried about who's coming on the podium. I'm concerned about whether the voter is using the right lens to look at the individuals coming on the podium. So that if someone is coming on the podium and speaking and acting like they belong, but they don't, that Mwananchi is seeing through them. Because at the end of the day, the way politicians behave, if they notice a vehicle that is going to deliver them to the vote, they will take that vehicle.
How critical?
The reason why Sifuna has lots of friends in Western Kenya right now is because the politicians in Western Kenya have had Mimi ndio Sifuna, and now they know it's an easy ticket back to office. Are the people of Western Kenya checking to see that everybody who's saying Mimi ndio Sifuna just because they want to come back to office have actually done them well? If they haven't, they should punish them by sending them home, even as they make Sifuna president. That's my point. And Sifuna himself, as he's making his friends, is he checking who's going to be baggage to him? Because when I say baggage, I mean the people who have nothing to offer to Kenyans but are tagging onto you just because they're hoping to win.
Just to piggy up on what you've said, earlier you said there is need for leaders to have that national appeal. There is fear that with the infiltration in these movements, there is a high possibility that then someone like Sifuna, who had that national appeal, is being balkanized to remaining being a community leader, right? But if you look at someone like Sifuna and the appeal that he has, it's nationwide. It has been seen as if he appeals to each and every single facet of what Kenya is. Now, everybody else, as we've seen, is their backyard. This is my community. I am coming with my community on the table. Sifuna is getting there with saying, I'm coming in with Kenyans. Can that be a better negotiating level as opposed to my backyard? I'm coming with 2 million people.
I actually wish he was saying, I'm coming in with Kenyans, as he's discussing it with equals at the top. He cannot take Kenyans and bring them into the home of Western Kenya. That's the thing. We are saying that Western Kenya is a small village inside Kenya. Kenya is the bigger house. If we were to use Boni Halwale's compound, Kenya is the first wife's home. Oh, wow. You know, okay. So you can't be bringing Kenya into the last wife's house. You're supposed to be bringing everyone to the big home. You know, and so for me, my concern for Sifuna right now is that the friends he's making are dragging him towards a smaller corner of this nation, and yet he was propped up as a national leader. They are taking away from the greatness that he has managed to achieve through his career, and of course that ODM mistakes have managed to inject into his political career. If he does not watch out in the next coming days, he risks irrelevance. And I know I may get in trouble for saying this because I know the Mimi Sifuna people don't want to hear anybody saying what I'm saying today. But I'm saying this because Sifuna is a man I have loved. Sifuna is a man that my family supports. Sifuna is a man that my brother was begging to send money to his campaign even before he decided to go for presidency when he was vying for Senate. So he's someone who has actually, has a good track record as far as I'm concerned. And his sins are few. Let's say that, you know. I am saying this today because the friends he is making are friends who are dragging him to a small corner. They are dragging him to that place of being a kingpin, leader from Western. And the reason why they're dragging him there is because they like the consolidation power that he has for Western Kenya now. They like how easily he's going to deliver them to the vote and ensure that they win even without vetting. That is why I started by saying, these buses, don't vote for the bus. Tell people, shuka chini. Check, you know the way you check, everybody check their bag, confirm that they are not...
Kalau style.
All Kalau style. Check that they're not carrying stolen money. They're not carrying corruption records. Check if they are, even if they say Mimi Sifuna, send them home. We have also seen Gaira, political prostitutes, who are in the space, but they're busy swaying in every direction, looking for survival, hoping that they are going to be named deputy governor, hoping that they're going to be named running mate for somebody. And in the process, they hold on to nothing in terms of philosophy, hold on to nothing in terms of ideology, but then they are hoping that they're going to be caught up somewhere and be found in office. Those people may actually be that news that is going to hang the candidate that you love and support as soon as they find their way into becoming a deputy something, because either they're coming with money or influence or associations, it will be a problem. I've seen some headlines talking about Uhuru funding Sifuna to do whatever and whoever funding. I beseech Kenyans, I'm really begging Kenyans to go and follow the money again. Follow the money again, confirm who is funding your candidate, confirm who they are working for.
Why does that matter?
Why that matters is because if you do not follow the money, you will discover that 3/4 of the already existing political parties in Luo Nyanza are working in favor of President Ruto, not because they're going to vote for him, but because they are scattering the vote for him. You will discover that Western Kenya is being split in the many directions, is being split so that there's nobody who's going to get the kind of mass of votes that will then beat the number of votes that Ruto is going to receive. You will discover that even the noise from the coast, where it was noise about having UDM and whoever their candidate is as the deputy president, and then now they realize this is not going to work, and Joho is now being propped up, is noise to ensure that at the end of the day, Ruto gets something small, and then everyone else splits whatever is left. When you start splitting like that, he's eventually going to be the beneficiary of this thing.
Come on now, Stella. What you're telling us is that there's a hidden hand here in all of these things that we are seeing that could go to the benefit of the incumbent.
And don't be surprised if that hidden hand is the president of Kenya, His Excellency President Ruto. I don't know why I'm calling him Excellency. Don't be surprised if that is him. Because this man is a trickster. I've said it in this studio over and over again. The person we are dealing with is not a man who plays around. There's nothing that is off the table for him. If he must pay his own people to go and act like they belong to you so that they can split you, he will pay them. I'm actually asking Kenyans to pay attention. It is okay to be in support of the official opposition, but if you're going to drive these people, drive them towards making a decision that will serve you, and not a decision that will serve their piper for now. And you need to check who is out here genuinely because they care about Kenya and they want to transform Kenya, and who is out here because they have a mission to achieve.
So, Ngaira, is this what you saw? Is this the fear that Renaissance movement and walked out?
October 1st.
And why couldn't you just sit down with Linda Mwananchi as founding members to deal with the problem?
That's what I want to tell you. October 1st, 2025, last year, a day just before IEBC clears candidates for the by-election that was going to happen in November, we make a decision that ODM is no longer our home. And ODM was not going to give us space to compete on their platform for any other future political formation. And we decide that there is need to have a party. You understand, Dennis?
Mm-hmm.
Then I go for the by-election because there was no room then to do a party. We go for the by-election. The by-election was in November. 9 candidates in Malava. I came forth, and then we come back to Nairobi. We decided what is the name of the party. You understand? Fast forward, January this year, January 10th, we have our second meeting, and the registrar informs us that our certificate for provisional registration is ready. The week that followed, I think a Wednesday or Thursday, so because Sunday, the meeting was on, the 10th meeting was on a Sunday, so 11th, 12th, 13th, on a Wednesday, we go to the IBC, to the office of the Registrar of Political Party, RPP, and we formally receive our the clearance for PM Party, which was covered with the entire media. Mm-hmm. That was 8 months ago, before we did the first rally for Linda Mwananchi. It was way ahead of time. You understand? There was no Linda Mwananchi at that time, do. We believed that the country needs a clean start. And we believed in Sifuna, and we believe that if there's anybody that is closer to what we as PM believe in, is Sifuna, and that's why we want that clean slate. And we did not agree with the many other factions that came into play. That's why people have been asking, and I think you asked even Caleb, why are you no longer in the Linda Mwananchi rallies? That has been a question he's been asked.
Yes.
It's because we saw along the way, and Stella, she's right.
But he didn't tell us that. He told us that on the days when
you
there
look
was
for him because you can ask him.
No. I asked the question directly. Yeah. And I asked him, why have you not been there? Are you still part of the thing? And he said, no. Well, on the last few occasions, he's been busy, but he's still part of it. Is that a lie?
I'm prepared. I just talked to him this morning.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that has changed.
I'm telling you that along the way, and Stella, what she's alluding to is very correct. There are people who then became, we started getting new players on our platforms that we truly felt like they do not represent what we're trying to achieve. And also, I've told you from the lessons we've learned. Remember, Derek, we've been around for a while. I might not look. Sorry, I keep forgetting. There's some guy called Derek I know as well. So, Dennis, I keep saying that one lesson that I learned from the corporate sector is that there are people who are supposed not to be carried away with just the sideshows on the stage. They need to look at what is happening from behind the scenes. And Stella, she's right. Follow the money, look at the allies that somebody is keeping. It means we are no longer on the same page as to what we had, the original dream of what we wanted to achieve. And that's why we decided to look back and say, wait a minute, why is this and this guy now here? What is his interest in this group? Who could be the beneficiary of his actions within this formation? You understand? And when you go deeper to that, then you realize the kind of things Stella, she's alluding to, that there are people who really wanted Linda to veer off the original mission, yet us, we were clear that if 8.2 million Kenyans did not see it worth it to go and vote, and that number has since grown with the Gen Z and the increasing number of progressive Kenyans, I think they're saying now is at around 11 million, those ones you can consider young and young voters, a big base that any political party can run with, because you get 80% of that is almost 9 million votes. You can win an election with that, isn't it? We say, let's go big on this group and bank on this group and go all the way. Then there are people who come with ethnic titles. We are equally disappointed, Stella, with the idea that our brother Sifuna has been dragged to Western Kenya, where he could have gotten just an automatic base. I've been there and people already like him. He doesn't really need to. It's one of those areas, and I was there 2 weeks ago. Sifuna, and I think from the funeral that we had on Friday, you can see he doesn't really need to do a lot of effort there. But to drag him back there, and even worse, from a communication point of view, to see that the people discussing Sifuna party at the local villages on the other side completely gives that first party a face of, a regional party, as opposed to what we've done. We did a very beautiful NDC. I think you saw it.
But Linda Mwananchi is not a party.
No, I know this is not my show, but can we also ask who's the beneficiary of Caleb walking alone?
No. You see, in a free and democratic...
So we shouldn't ask that question?
In a free... No, I'm just saying, in a free and democratic space, we are free. And that's why I've given you the history of our party. It was there way before this Linda thing.
Absolutely. Can we ask who's the beneficiary of him walking alone?
You see, when somebody makes a political decision in a free and democratic state, in a free and democratic space, it's enough that it fits the purpose as to why he believes I built this formation. For us is to be able to Originally, we had thought within the Linda group that now that the vision to deliver a new generation of leaders within the Linda Mwananchi is failing, we have to build a real board, because Linda was not a party, as you say.
Still
Linda can't take you to parliament tomorrow, but PM can give you a ticket to go to parliament.
But one asks the question, if you believed in what Linda Mwananchi was to offer, and there were concerns that you had as a founding member of Linda Mwananchi, why not stick it out and deal with that issue? Because many now are looking at RM, unfortunately, as the party that has come to divide the votes that Linda Mwananchi was controlling in the first place.
PM or RM? Now I'm even getting confused.
PM has come to interfere with the votes that Linda Mwananchi was controlling. So who's benefiting with that division?
After the 2017 election, an ODM party went into a review. We went to Kilaguni to do an analysis of how the outcome of the election. We made a decision that it was a terrible mistake with the coalition partners to allow our members of parliament in the lower, our candidates in the lower seats to compete against each other, because we had lost some easy seats, including Langata, seats that you could not have lost. And the decision was that we should not repeat the same mistake going to the next election, because it gave us low numbers in parliament. That functionary was there. When that decision was taken to the NEC meeting at Oranges, where I was, it was ratified, including the party leader then, Raila Odinga. He said this was a terrible mistake. 4 years later, I was back at KICC, and ODM was again signing a coalition agreement with, in fact, 26 other parties. In my local constituency back home in Ubuya East, where everybody was angling to get that one ticket for ODM because they believed that was the ticket, immediately the decision was made at KICC that ODM is now going to be part of a formation called Azimio, and now we have 26 other options. All the candidates that were in that nomination that were going to face in ODM split into 7 parties. You understand? The guy who won that seat, Mr. Wanyonyi, who is now the current MP for Ubuya East, won with 12,000 votes. All the other 6 candidates of Azimio put together almost double his vote. You understand? The leader of the party was still the same. Human beings are not angels. It's possible that we have a leader who's probably not listening to everybody. You understand? And sometimes you can try as much, you can do your best to try and inform the leader that this
Which
is the
leader
right
is this
thing.
now you're talking about? Because like I said, you're confusing us here. Which leader are you talking about? You're talking about Caleb Amisi, you're talking about,
I'm talking about
Sifuna. He's not listening to whom?
I do believe that Sifuna is not listening to everybody that is giving the advice.
Who is he listening to?
No. I think let's not be insincere. Let's not be insincere. And I'm glad that you've given the example you have given.
Yeah.
This example you have given sets you right where I need you. Because I asked a question.
Yes.
Should we also ask who's benefiting from Caleb walking alone? And I think you've answered my question when you spoke about the example that you have given.
Yeah.
Anytime we are on a mission to scatter the opposition votes, we are basically saying we are playing into the hands of President Ruto. And for me, once we answer the question of who is gathering and who is scattering, number one, follow the money. Then number two, who is gathering and who is scattering? Then we have the answer to the question, who wants us to go back into the hands of our oppressor? And that is a difficult
The
question.
oppressor being?
Of course, the president of this nation.
Okay.
I have always been very clear that this is a presidency I don't appreciate. He's a man I cannot stand. I really, really wish we had never made this mistake that we have made in this nation, because we have put ourselves in a lot of trouble. Now, in 2002, when we wanted to get rid of Moi, Caleb was alive. He saw what the opposition had to do. Baba had to sacrifice his own ambitions to go and support Kibaki in order for only one candidate to be competing for all the votes that were not going to be put in the basket that Moi was supporting, and therefore had President Uhuru as the candidate. If that was the formula that worked then, nothing has changed in this nation now. If you split the opposition amongst the many people, very soon you may hear that Rigiji is going to be allowed to vie if his appeal goes the way he wants it to go. If you split all those votes, you will waste the value of consolidation that comes from having the number of millions that the Mrima represents, and the number of millions that Western Kenya represents, the number of millions that Luo Nyanza represents, caused every part of this nation that is clamoring for change. You will waste those votes. The conversation now is not for people to now go and start creating their own camp in the name of what did you call it? Democratic, in a democratic nation. No. Our elections is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening in a space where democracy itself has been captured. So for you to be able to transform the nation, you must do extra in order to consolidate. And that is why people are even talking about coalitions. I'm hoping that coalition can be created before we go into the election, because you don't want a President Ruto in a runoff. You do not want that. And we also don't want to tire Kenyans and exhaust Kenyans voting for so many small village heads. And then eventually, after the election, we now tell them that they're going to go for a runoff and spend more money and vote for someone against the President Ruto. Especially when IBC is saying it's broke.
Stella and George, this is interesting because at the very beginning of all of these conversations, as we saw things starting to morph, because, I mean, August 2022 is the same as now. Politics had already started taking center stage when the new administration came into. And what people told us is that the agenda and its slogans were there. Ruto must go. That was the agenda. That seems to have changed now. The agenda seems to be morphing to, I also want a piece of the pie. You've more or less said it just now. Caleb Amisi said, no, this is not what we wanted. So let us now register our party alone. Others have said, I'm not going to run. Then suddenly you find yourself running. Those who've been impeached are coming back and saying, I control. So if you want anything, you have to talk to me. But this is my candidate. Somebody else says we're going to work together, but I want to be what happened to the original idea whereby good governance and proper leadership for the security of the livelihoods of the people of Kenya, according to the Constitution, was going to be the main agenda? Where did that go?
You know, Drew, the thing is, I think you've not had the chronology that I gave you.
I did. I heard very well, but my question remains. Where did the original idea go? Because nobody's talking about it now. Have you heard in this conversation that we've had this morning? We're talking about the people of Kenya to ensure that where they're going in the future is going to be secured. And that it was clear in the minds of people that the way things are currently cannot continue. But now, even in this last 1.5 hours, what have we heard? That, well, you know, there's infiltration, there might be somebody paying another person. We don't know if the people who are joining are with us or not with us, and we also
the original you're saying the original reason, the original agenda as to why we created whatever formation that we did. And you know that even as she talked about Linda, before that we had Kenya Moja, it hasn't changed. Do it's our belief, and my personal belief, that unless we change the quality of the leaders that we have currently and not be forced into compromise, as she's saying, that yes, while we might want a fresh team, but the reality of beating the president, that's the argument, isn't it? The reality of beating President William Ruto is that we must coalesce as a position, which we agree.
Yes.
But we have said if that is to happen, then we must still remain on course as to what the original intention is, which is to deliver generational change in the country. And we did not create a party after Linda and these things you're talking about.
It doesn't matter when it happened.
Because you're trying to allude to that, saying that,
we don't I'm not alluding. I'm very clear. If there's anything, I'm extremely clear.
I think Doe is asking a different question. She's asking why we have departed from the interest of Kenyans. The delivery of services to Kenyans, power with the people towards kingpins and splitting and getting a piece of the cake and everything. And the truth is we have departed. But I have been raising an alarm in this studio continuously, saying Gen Z managed to take us away from the place where we were discussing individuals and their fiefdoms towards a place where we were discussing every individual based on how they deliver for Kenyans.
Yes.
The status quo panicked. They panicked, and so they had to reorganize quickly. In this situation, I actually contend that every one of the actors in our society right now, including Rigiji himself, who also participated in the process of trying to take us back to the place where we start discussing fiefdoms instead of discussing the interests of Kenyans. Yeah. And so now they have brought us to a place where even Gen Z themselves are discussing a kingpin before they discuss the interests of Kenyans. Is it possible to transform that? Yes, it is. If it was done once, it can be done again. But the truth is we have departed from that place. And maybe what we were saying even at the beginning of this show is that we need to move from kingpins. That's why I'm saying tell people to get out of the bus and go back to discussing the interests of Kenyans and what they deliver for you. That's number one. And if we are not careful, the resources they're investing in making sure that we don't discuss our interests and we discuss fiefdoms and whatever other spaces they want to discuss is a lot. And therefore, if we do not invest our own resources in pulling this conversation towards our interests, we will reach the next election discussing kingpin, Luo kingpin, Kikuyu kingpin, whatever kingpin, and one term and two term, which are nonsense if you ask me. The main issue should be who is going to redeem this nation from where we find ourselves now. Number two is that you cannot separate the political careers of politicians from the politics that they carry. At the end of the day, their politics is for survival. If the market demands fiefdoms, they will be discussing kingpin and mutuetu and all that. If the market demands accountability, you saw for a period of time during the first round of Gen Z protests in your studios, everyone was coming in talking about Kenyans and what Kenyans want. Kenyans and what Kenyans want. So it's possible to get the politicians to talk about the right things. The demand side is what should increase. Every Kenyan should insist that every candidate tells them what they're going to do for them. And I was glad when they started asking, okay, sawa sisi ndio Sifuna, then what? Okay, you want to be our president, Maraga, what are you going to do for us? Okay, Matiang'i, you're saying you want to be our president. How about these sins and that sin that you committed? I was happy when we were having those conversations, and I wish we could quickly go back to that place, because when we do, it will become very easy for us to even to choose from outside who we want as a presidential candidate. Tell them, if you don't have this person as a presidential candidate, that we are not going to get on board. And the reason why we must do this is because as Kenyans, we are the ones who felt the pain of what we have had to deal with. These politicians can regroup, organize themselves, figure out a way of surviving without us. So we must make decisions that are going to serve our interests. But number two, and most important, I've sat right here suggesting that we have a people's electoral college. When I was suggesting it, I actually just thought we were going to use it to choose who becomes our MCA, MP, whatever. But I realize now, more than ever, that we're going to need that people's electoral college, because if you have united opposition and Linda Mwananchi plus any other initiative that is going to arise as a result of the transitions that are happening right now, we may need a space where the people again get to choose. That space is not an NDC, because these things are no longer happening in political parties. That space is a different space, and that space must be held. I hate to admit that Baba may have seen this far when he says we need a conclave. Because if this is what we are carrying into the next election, it basically means we can't have... The NDCs will choose who becomes the Wiper candidate, who becomes the ODM candidate, who becomes UDA. But then at the end of the day, when you get out here, we have to figure out, how do we choose this one person? Do we allow people to close the door and come back and tell us tumechagua huyu? Or are we saying we want a stake in it? And I think we must demand a stake in it. After we demand a stake in it, they should not be chosen based on their tribe. They should be chosen based on what they're going to do for Kenyans. If you choose based on your tribe, just rest assured that you're playing in the hands of the status quo. Money was poured. Time was spent to strategize, to ensure that you stop discussing accountability, stop discussing the interests of Kenyans, stop discussing what Kenyans need, and start discussing Mrima and Luo Kingpin and Western Kenya, Munduefwe, and Coast. And the fact that the time for Coast has come. I'm telling you, we must be very careful in these conversations that we're having as we go towards the next election. The truth is that the people who have led Kenya to where we are today prefer to go to the elections with tribes as the key for the rooms. The people who actually care about democracy prefer to go to the elections with political parties, with philosophies, strong philosophies, as a vehicle for delivery of leadership. If we truly, truly cared about democracy, ODM should not have been a party that is dying right now. The man who is in power does not care about democracy. And that is why he allowed a party that has grown for 20 years, had the kind of tenets that it has, to just disappear. Because he wanted to make sure that he neutralizes it and makes it weak.
I mean, Gairo, we've seen Kenyans speak. And if we just go back to Olkalau, utaleta pesa, but we will use our heads to vote, right? Now, we wanted to get to a point where we're discussing issues and agendas and interrogating individuals who are coming in our spaces and saying that even if we vote for you and you get to that house, you will stand with us, that you will deliver to us. Because remember, 2022, Azimio, as it were, was the majority in parliament. But what happened to those political parties and their leaders that it was so easy for them to just move, because then President William Ruto was the president and they could move that way. So how do we also ensure that within these united opposition that have come together with a single agenda, we'll stick it out with Kenyans, we'll do what is needed for Kenyans to say, finally, we have a leadership that is working?
Those are the efforts that we're making, and I think Stella deserves a cocktail. The next people's cocktail in a week's time. I think I reach out to her for clearly setting out what should be happening in this country. I think Dennis, Kenyans have already made that statement, particularly young Kenyans.
Yeah.
They are very clear on what they expect in the next election. And that's why we keep saying that you're underestimating this group, but it's a solid group that will be very decisive in the next election. We want to bank on it. When you say just fresh, it's because we believe that fresh is a sizable amount of Kenyans that want to see agendas and manifestos and what's your vision for this country and your track record, because you can just come and purport to want to do something for us, but there's nothing much to see of what you've been doing before, isn't it? And they've already crossed that line. So there's no debate as to whether Kenyans, particularly the Kenyans of this generation, the younger Kenyans, maybe over generations if you're millennial, who have such expectations as alluded by Stella and as per your questions. What I am saying is, why can't we stick on that lane? You understand? Why can't we stick with those ones? Those ones, and see how many are there. That is the, you call what do you call this? The opinion poll. That's the ultimate opinion poll that we need on election day to find out, are they truly 11 million Kenyans who want to see a new Kenya? It can only happen if we stay on that lane as opposed to going for compromise. That compromise, Stella, of saying that, yes, it's true, we agree that we need a fresh start. But you see, we can't do, if at all, we do not mop up these other ethnic leaders and stuff. We've tried that before. That's why we have an impeached president. This president, we have an impeached deputy president. This deputy president and this Gachagua, former deputy president Gachagua, was impeached, and his boss then, William Ruto, had a campaign. We went to Nyeri. That is the most brutal. One time we were coming with Baba from Nyeri. We went to, those who know Karatina town, just after Karatina town, there's a hotel there. We were somewhere there, and we were having lunch before we come into Kiambu, I think a place called Makongeni, and then eventually Githurai. You know that story of Baba climbing the mountain. And the kind of hate I saw on that line, just because they were saying, we know Ruto is hata akiwa ni mwizi wetu. Remember those statements on your own media? You're a journalist. Those people had put compromise in their campaign. They said, yes, while we know that there are characters within our campaign that are not good enough and do not deserve these positions, but because we must defeat Baba. I hope you're getting the context of my argument. Because we must just defeat Baba, let's compromise and carry them along. Eventually you form government, and then you realize you do not share the same ideology, you do not share the same working culture with the person, and you can't stand them, and then you impeach them. Isn't it? And that's what we want to avoid. We want to have a situation where, truly, if we believe in a certain cause, we go all the way and go build and discover our numbers on the ballot. You understand? Otherwise, we're going to do a compromise, Stella. And I agree. We're going to do a compromise and say, yes, we must have these people. We cannot do without them. He's bringing our Kamba vote. He's bringing all this kind of votes. He's bringing Kikuyus and stuff. But eventually, when we form government, and somebody asked me, he asked me, who's your candidate? Our candidate is Edwin Sifuna. And say, by good luck, he's given that presidency on a silver platter, and his president is next year, September 10th, he's sworn in, and his president, now this is President Sifuna. And he has now all this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.